Hey, brother!
And welcome everyone to the final Super Carlin Brothers episode of the year!
Wow-wee!
Yes.
What are we gonna do?
Well, it's the end of the year, so of course we have to rank things.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and what we're going to rank is all of the movies we've already reviewed this year in our preference now.
In our preference, specifically all of the Disney movies that came out this year.
Yes.
Because Disney had one of the most unbelievable record-setting years at the box office. They are on track to have had 8 movies cross the $1 billion mark worldwide. We have seen all these movies, we have reviewed all of these movies, and today we are going to rank them from 1 to 8. From 8 to 1. Something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Let's dive on in.
Here we go.
Hey, brother!
Guys, before we dive on into our reviews, I want to turn your attention to our brand new podcast, Popcorn Culture.
Yes, as of yesterday on Christmas Day, the first 3 episodes are now live. So you can go check those out right now. Link is in the description down below. You got 3 full episodes you can go check out.
Okay, guys, the movies that we're going to be reviewing today are Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, The Lion King, Aladdin, Spider-Man: Far From Home, Avengers: Endgame, Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, and Captain Marvel.
Wow. Hard to believe they were all this year.
It is. Like Captain Marvel especially, I think was the first one we had of the year.
It feels so far away.
It feels so far away.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, you might be wondering, if you've already reviewed them all, haven't you given them rankings and therefore we should already know what the rankings are? That's a very good point, which is why we have also had our office manager, Jordan, go through and write down all of our previous rankings of these movies from when we reviewed them, and she has that listed here. So we are going to first reveal our bottom half, the bottom 4, and then we're going to reveal the top half, and we have each individually done this.
Yes.
So we'll discuss after each, and then we're going to open the envelope to see how we compare with ourselves after some time has passed.
Yes, so I think this is very interesting because there are 2 things that have really come into focus for me this year when it comes to how I feel about movies, and that is recency bias and the fullness of time.
Right.
And both of those things are like right after you've seen a movie, you might be particularly jazzed about it and like give it like a little extra something.
Yeah.
Or it could have been the case that the movie didn't quite meet your expectations and therefore you were very hard on it because it missed the mark. But then ultimately, once you get further away from your original expectations going into the movie and you come to know it as it is, it climbs the ranks. I think Rogue One is a perfect example of that for probably both of us.
Both of us and The Last Jedi, I would say, for me.
Yeah, it's definitely like after more time has passed, you start to appreciate the things about it more.
Yes.
And I think for us in particular, as people who pick apart trailers and go into the movie hoping our predictions are correct, when we are wrong, I think we cannot help but be a little bit disappointed. So I think those are things that will probably come up for both of us in our reviews, and probably I would say my best explanation as to why I'm sure that my review list here is different from what is inside of the
I am sure mine is different from there too, which I think will be very interesting to see how present me differs from past me.
Yes. Okay. So you want to start with our bottom 4.
Our bottom 4.
Yes.
All right. Should we go? I'll just do 8, 7, 6, 5.
8, 7, 6, 5.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
All right. My number 8 was The Lion King, then Aladdin, Captain Marvel at 6, and Toy Story 4 at 5.
Ooh, we are we're very similar, but not exactly the same.
Okay,
so,
let's see it.
My number 8 is The Lion King.
Same there.
Aladdin is at number 7. Toy Story 4 is at number 6, and Frozen 2 is at number 5.
I am so surprised to hear that. Frozen 2.
Yeah.
You, Mr. Frozen.
I know.
My goodness.
Frozen is a fascinating one for me because I think that there are, it was like my most robust category for things that I loved and things that I didn't like about the movie. And
so you had like really high highs and really low lows.
Sort of, yeah. So like for Frozen 2, I love Elsa. I think that she is just a spectacular protagonist for the story. Like she's super cool, but it was almost like they put all of the interesting eggs in her basket.
And then everyone else was along for the ride, and they had to give them stuff, but anything that wasn't Elsa wasn't interesting.
That is basically what it came down to for me. Yes, that's sort of how I felt about the movie. Like, Kristoff effectively was, with the exception of his song, which I love, is a basic non-entity. And I felt like Anna, who is probably one of my favorite Disney characters, was I have no other way to put it than a bit of a nag. Like, she was sort of on repeat, where her sentiment throughout the first probably half of the movie is nothing but like, you said we were doing this together, and hey, she's my sister, and it's like, we know. I
think to your own point that you have got recency bias against these little Anna moments.
Yeah.
I would bet that in the fullness of time, the little annoying things sort of fade, and the overall messaging and story of the movie stands out to you.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay.
That's my guess.
For what it's worth, I know that my opinions on things fluctuate constantly.
Oh, yeah, right.
My opinions are tectonic plates.
Yeah.
Yes, constantly shifting and running into one another.
Lots of mountains, lots of earthquakes.
Right, the occasional tsunami.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that is why Frozen 2 landed where it did for me.
So otherwise, we had Lion King, Aladdin, and Captain Marvel?
I have Captain Marvel in my top 4.
Okay, so did you have Toy Story 4?
Toy Story 4, yes.
Okay, so we had Lion King, Aladdin, and Toy Story 4 all in the bottom half.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the Lion King then, because we both put it at last.
We both put it at last.
Okay.
And I think quite literally my notes on the Lion King were that, like, on my first pass of the movie, I literally did not like it.
I remember. I think that was probably the one. I don't think anyone's surprised there that the Lion King is the bottom of our list on this one.
Sure.
Because I think what it comes down to is that, with the exception of the Lion King, I really liked pretty much every other movie on the list. Like, this is like a top 7 and also the Lion King.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
That's a fine way to put it. Actually, I will say on that notion, though, none of these 8 movies are amongst my favorite movies.
Of the year?
Of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah, so
okay.
None of these are like, I don't know that any of these would even crack my top 10 for movies of all time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's a strangely big year in that these were all massive blockbusters, and that none of them were so absolutely remarkable to me that they, like, creep into that.
Yeah.
That category.
I'd say if and when Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker cracks the $1 billion mark worldwide, every movie on this list will have.
Yes.
And the only movie off this list to crack $1 billion will have been Joker.
Wow.
Which is interesting to me.
That is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so only one non-Disney movie.
Right.
Unless you count Spider-Man Far From Home as a Sony movie instead of a Disney movie. But
Sure. That's fair. That's probably where I think there's a little trip up on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But so going back to The Lion King, the one thing I will say about it is I think there are absolute stars of this movie in Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah, I wrote that down too, that, like, I will give highlights to Timon and Pumbaa, and even probably John Oliver some. Like, the comedic relief was really good. Like, Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner, whose name I always am afraid I'm saying wrong. And yeah, I thought they were hilarious and brought, like, a really fresh take on Timon and Pumbaa.
Yes.
But I've said this before, I'm always wary of a movie where the comic relief is my favorite character.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to like the comic relief. So when they rise to the top, not that a movie, not that they can't be your favorite character and it be a good movie.
Sure.
But, like, it's like a little red flag. Like, consider something here. Was K2SO your favorite character? Should he have been?
Sure.
That's Rogue One. That's the droid in Rogue One.
I do love K2SO.
Me too.
It's really great.
that was one of those, like, I don't know, but so that stands out to me, and I think. Well, we both have Aladdin at number 7, but I think what really put The Lion King firmly at 8 is that, like, I would definitely want to rewatch Aladdin, the live-action Aladdin, on its own merits.
Sure.
Whereas if I ever wanted to watch The Lion King again, I would always just watch the animated version. You know what I mean?
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that is, like, the biggest challenge. Like, when we were prepping for seeing the live-action Lion King, we were going through and we were rewatching so many clips and, putting together ideas from the original Lion King. And you can pull up any impactful moment from the original Lion King, no context, coming in cold, and have chills within 10 seconds.
Right. Like, it's very well done.
The movie plays with your emotions in the exact right way face, and it's very well executed. And I know that there was a huge conversation going into The Lion King about whether or not there was a need for a quote unquote live action or updated.
Yeah, it's not even live action.
Right, like there is no live action actual element to it.
Yeah. In fact, I think The Lion King is actually up for Best Animated Movie at the Oscars.
Oh, interesting.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It won't win.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's based on like the quality of animation, which is very high.
It is very good. It is truly spectacular. But that is where I think all the live action Disney movies so far, I think, have gone through and corrected some of the plot holes from its animated original.
Yeah.
Where people, I think, are approaching these movies through a finer lens.
Yeah.
And I think that people are, like, I think that if Beauty and the Beast came out this year, the original one, there'd be things where people are like, well, they kind of missed this, or like, this doesn't really make sense. And the live action fixed those things. I don't know that the live action Lion King does that for the original Lion King at all, at any point in time.
But The Lion King doesn't have as many plot holes to begin with.
Well, maybe it was just a more sound story. But I think that you have to use the medium that they had to tell the story ever so slightly differently enough to benefit that medium.
Yeah.
And I would say that it fell short on that.
I wouldn't, because they didn't really change many things to the story to make it like its own thing. They added some things to double down on like the theme of the circle of life, but like, and we can move on to Aladdin now, where I feel like they changed enough about Aladdin to where it's like it feels new and fresh.
It is.
Like I love Naomi Scott as Jasmine. I mean, she's definitely the star of the show.
She
still
is, 100%.
And her song "Speechless" is awesome. It is probably the one that I listen to the most from that sound. I mean, it's definitely the one I listen to the most from that soundtrack.
Oh my gosh, we were at my bachelor party a couple weekends ago, and us 7 guys were listening to "Speechless."
Yeah.
Like on our Bluetooth speaker in this cabin in the woods of West Virginia.
Yeah.
Like
the last place you'd expect to find this
that
song.
particular song, like at full volume, and everybody like tuned in.
Yeah.
No, I thought I literally, and I've said this before, and we said it about Toy Story as well, where we feel like it could have been titled Woody. I literally feel like Aladdin could have been retitled Jasmine for the purposes of this movie, because I think that she's the star. They build her out to be a much more robust character that I think was well executed, and she does seem that much more impressive as a result. I think there is some like weird thoughts that I have about the genie, and I think even like my original take on it is like, please don't do the whole like, well, he's not Robin Williams thing.
Yeah.
Because like that was never going to happen.
You can't redo it.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the best executed animated characters of all time.
I mean, that's the reason why when you see animated movies, they are voice cast by big celebrities now.
Right.
Because prior to that, didn't do that.
You didn't do that. So he was the one who sort of like brought that to the surface.
Yep.
And the thing that I will say about Will Smith's performance, though, is that throughout the entirety of the movie, I always felt like somebody was like tying one arm behind his back. It's like, no, we can't have you be as animated as Will Smith is capable of being, because then it's going to seem like we're trying to have him be Robin Williams. And so the scene that got me in particular is right out of the gate when he starts singing the Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
And he's like climbing the ladder, and he sort of like his kids are pleading with him to please sing a song, and he's like no, I'm not singing. And then he starts climbing the ladder and like turns around, and it's like, I would have loved Will Smith to be Will Smith there, and like to jump off the ladder and like immediately be like in full blown
really
character,
into
and it's
it.
like, and instead it's sort of like this sort of like under his voice type of thing, and you're like, what's happening? Like, is it bad syncing? Was it just hard to like get that exactly right? Like where he was recording in the booth?
It's hard to sing on a boat, man.
No, I know, right? I mean, the shifting.
Have you ever tried it?
Right, yeah. The frequencies are all off.
Exactly. My goodness.
So there's something to be said there, and it's not me doubting Will Smith's ability. It was maybe me slightly frustrated with the directorial allowance that they were giving him to play the character as maybe I would have expected.
Sure.
So that was sort of where I landed with Aladdin, and also that I really just think Naomi Scott's voice was so much better than Aladdin's, that on A Whole New World, it was like a slightly jarring thing.
Oh, right. Where one was like really good and the other half was like a little like.
It was strange, and again, I felt like they were trying to change like the ups and downs of the song so that it was different for the live action, and it's like, that's not necessary.
Yeah,
like,
everyone just likes the song.
Everyone just likes the song. Do it exactly how it's supposed to be. Like, let us enjoy it with like with new visual.
Yeah.
So that's sort of why I landed on Aladdin. Do you want to talk Toy Story 4? Because that was both in our bottom 4.
We both have it in the bottom 4.
Yeah.
So this one was, I think, the hardest for me to place on the whole list. Like, it kept floating around. I had it at 4 at one point. I had it at 6 at one point.
Okay.
Which is why I was like, maybe I'll just put it at 5, and I'll let the pieces lay where they lie. But it was the hardest one for me to place on the whole list, so I put it at 5. Really, like you said, I think part of it is that it continues to feel unnecessary.
Yes.
To Toy Story. Like, it's just like a really, really in-depth epilogue. And it's like, if you want to know what happened to Woody after the fact, this is a great movie. Like, good for you. But, like, you don't really need to. Like you said, they could have just called it Woody, and I think it would have been... I almost feel like I would have liked it more if they just called it Woody. And you're like, okay, this is not part of the Toy Story saga. Yes, it's the same character, but now it's like Logan was to Wolverine, you know?
Sure,
it's like, this is his standalone swan song. We're going to see what happened to Woody after the fact.
Right, like, you know, like you almost want Woody to have ended the day as happy as Woody can be because he's such like a beloved character. But I think what you get with that, like, you know, there's all these reports coming out before Toy Story 4 where they're talking about Tom Hanks and Tim Allen recording their lines, and it's like, I don't know what Tim Allen would have said throughout the movie where it would have been this, like, I couldn't get through my lines, like, it was so hard, because Buzz's character is like, he's an extra in the movie. He's not really like the character of Buzz Lightyear to me. It's like, we were able to get Tim Allen to come back to like be involved with this other project we were doing, so that, you know, it is in fact the correct Buzz voice. Yeah. But other than that, you know, he's got this inner voice thing. He's got the one gimmick the whole movie. And they keep going back to it. And Buzz has been like, I mean, I feel like even when we criticized this in our original review, people were like, no, Buzz has always been a little bit clueless. Like, he didn't even realize he was a toy. He thought he was a space ranger and stuff. And it's like, but is it the same? Like, is it the same?
I don't think it's the same. Yeah. And I think the thing is, it's not like anyone got to the end of Toy Story 3 and was like, well, now, wait a minute. Woody wouldn't just be another kid's toy. Right. Woody would be, like, on his own, wouldn't he? Isn't that where they've been heading the story this whole time? Like, come on now. Like, no one was saying that. Right. You know, everyone was like, that was the most perfect ending ever. Oh, my God, I loved it. That was, you know. Right. You know, so it was like, I don't know. And I will tell you what has made me really feel this way is that my son, Luke, has been watching a lot of Toy Story. Yeah. Really likes it. And mostly we've been watching the first one. He's finally started allowing us to watch Toy Story 2. But it's, one, reminding me how good the first two are. And at no point am I like, yeah, I really want to watch Toy Story 4 again. You know, I'm like, I would love to watch Toy Story 3 whenever you're done watching Toy Story 2. But I'm not, like, feeling that urge to go back and, like, relive it again. You know, it's like, yeah. So, who knows? Maybe it'll change over time. But for me, yeah, it's like, and I really liked it. I did like Toy Story 4. Well,
and that's what so I have here, even like Forky times 1 million.
Yes,
like,
I did write Forky is really great. That's what I wrote.
Yeah, I love Forky as a character, and that was one where I really didn't know whether or not that was going to be like a likable character. Even before Toy Story 4 came out, somebody from like the Wall Street Journal called us to like get our thoughts, like, are people going to like Forky the character? And I think that they were like trying to determine whether or not like Disney was just off their rocker by trying to like make a Fork a likable character. And I think me and you were both kind of like, I don't know, like, maybe.
I don't know.
Right,
That's what he says on Forky Asks a Question.
Oh, nice.
I have been liking that series on Disney Plus.
On Disney Plus.
Which I know is targeted at a much younger audience, but I'm like, I don't care. I really like it.
You tuned in.
It's so silly. Tony Hale is just one of my favorite actors.
Right, yeah. Hey brother, at the beginning of our videos literally comes from him in Arrested Development.
Yeah.
Hey brother.
I mean, I guess they all. No, he says it. He's the one. No.
That's how we used to answer phone calls to each other. Yeah.
Hey, brother.
In real life. Anyway, so yeah, that's where I landed on my bottom 4.
Yeah, we already talked about Frozen. So then you must have Captain Marvel in your top 4. Should we reveal the order of that?
Yeah, we can do that before we talk Captain Marvel. So do you want to go first?
All right.
Go ahead.
I'll go from 4 to 1.
4 to 1.
At 4, I've got Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
Then Far From Home.
Okay.
Frozen 2 at 2.
Whoa!
Yeah. And then at number 1, Avengers Endgame.
Dang.
Yeah. So let's hear it. How different are you?
A bit. Actually,
wow.
A bit.
Because
yeah.
it's got to be most of the same movies.
Most of the same movies.
Yeah.
So I have 4 Rise of Skywalker.
Okay,
so we're the
that's
same.
the same.
3 I had Captain Marvel.
Okay. Wow.
2 I had Avengers Endgame, and 1 I had Far From Home.
Oh man, best movie of the year, Far From Home.
Far From Home.
Interesting.
So what's interesting about this, and I said before that these are not movies that have ranked like in my top 10 movies of all time. The numeric score I would have given from Far From Home in the top spot was an 87.
Okay.
So none of these in my recency bias and fullness of time scoring cracked 90.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
okay.
I think that it was as big of a year as it was. It didn't necessarily like lock places in my heart.
I gotcha. Interesting.
So
I think for me, of all of these, Endgame probably cracks like my top 10 movies.
Okay.
But the rest probably not. Interesting. So you said you had Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Far From Home as the top 3.
Yep. So Marvel wins.
Marvel swept your first, second, third.
Okay. So I think that Marvel is probably like we were witnessing the end of like their what I will imagine to be, and I'm very hopeful that it isn't their golden age of movies.
Certainly the end of like the first big saga.
Yes, yeah. Like they had so much going on. There was so much meaning to everything that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
There was this big cohesive plan that I think that Star Wars lacked.
Ooh, yes.
And so I think that the way that all the pieces ultimately fit together, the thing for me, well, we can come back to Endgame specifically, but yeah, what was your thought?
Oh, okay. Well, so you mentioned how it felt more cohesive for Endgame versus Star Wars, and I've been thinking about that a lot, just because both of them sort of came to an end of like their main saga thus far this year.
Sure.
And like Rise of Skywalker has been such an interesting thing to see unfold. Like before we did our review, I refused to look at reviews and try and avoid other people tweeting.
Yes.
Since then, I of course dove in and been like, oh, what's everyone think?
Right.
And I've been like astounded to see the total 50-50 split on it of just like, it was the best ever, I loved it, that was so cool, to just, oh, they ruined it, it's the worst, I hate Star Wars, even though I love Star Wars.
That's, I don't know how that's surprising at all, because that is Star Wars as a fandom.
That's part of Star Wars as the fandom. But so, I think, interestingly though, the reason I think that's part of Star Wars as a fandom is in direct contrast to the Marvel fandom, in that when you look at Star Wars has been coming out over 40 years.
Yes.
You've got 9 movies in 40 years, plus a huge chunk of video games and books and comics, all of which got just thrown in the garbage by Disney.
Right.
Said, this no longer counts. All that stuff maybe you loved that brought you to love Star Wars doesn't count. Then there's a whole new line of comics and video games and books and TV shows, all that go with the new Disney Star Wars.
Yes.
There's like, people have been entering the Star Wars fandom at so many different points in time and in so many different ways, and it means so many things to so many different people that like, it's no wonder everyone's split on what Star Wars is supposed to be.
Right. No, it would not surprise me if there are people who had not watched the Star Wars movies, got one of the video games, played the video game, and they were like, oh, now I should watch the movie. So, like, their introduction is so vastly different from someone who saw, so like, different. Star Wars Episode 4 in theaters in 1977.
Before it was Episode 4. And, like, you know, there's no cohesive plan to Star Wars. You know, when they wrote Episode 4, A New Hope, one, it wasn't Episode 4, it was just Star Wars. They didn't know what Return of the Jedi was going to be.
Right.
When they started The Force Awakens, they didn't know where it was going, as far as I know. You know, all that.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, Luke and Leia were not siblings until writing for Return of the Jedi.
Right. And certainly, like, the Emperor was dead at the Return of the Jedi before all this happened. Like, no one... It's like George Lucas wasn't finishing it thinking like, if only everyone knew that actually there was this second set of people, Rey and Kylo Ren, who are going to have to come back and really defeat the Emperor. Like, that was not, you know...
Right. There's no storyboard anywhere that has all that information.
Contrast with Marvel. Star Wars, 40 years, 9 movies. Marvel, 10 years, 23 movies.
Right.
One person, big cohesive story, sort of planned from the beginning. Maybe not entirely every loose end.
No, but like, you know, we have Fury in Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly.
The first ever movie.
So it's like, it's no, like, to me, the Marvel fandom is so united because it's like, you've gotten so much, so fast, and it's like, it is one big story.
Right.
Which is why you don't have this giant split. I'm sure in 30 years, you will, and people will be like, that's not a Marvel movie.
Right,
blah,
yeah.
blah,
It will be, like, Iron Man's my Marvel movie.
Exactly, right,
And people,
no Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr.,
yeah.
Chris Evans are Marvel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We will be purists compared to our kids' version of what it is. Yeah. So I do think that there's something to be said for that. Like, you had everybody sort of find Marvel in exactly the same way, and I do think there were so many different reasons. Like, you might be like, oh man, like, I really want to go see Captain Marvel, and maybe that was your entry point. Like, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, like, that was like her first Marvel movie, and then she went and watched everything.
Sure.
And so, like, I do think you could have entered from a lot of different ways, and that's how they snowballed this massive audience. But still, everybody agrees that they love it.
I mean, because, it's totally possible when you weren't born when Iron Man came out, and then you saw Captain Marvel as a 10-year-old, and it was, like, your favorite thing.
Right.
You know? Like,
absolutely.
that, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a huge part of it. But, so coming back to Captain Marvel, then, why it's so far down on my list, is basically just, as I was thinking about them, like, trying to put these things, like, I haven't seen Captain Marvel since theaters.
Okay.
And it hasn't been one that, like, I have really, like, felt the need to watch. Like, there was a little while my wife still hasn't seen it, where I was like, oh, she kept saying, oh, we should watch it. But then anytime even I would bring it up, it was just sort of like, she'd be like, nah, not right now. And she'd be like, and I wasn't like, no, you really need to. So it seemed like I wasn't prioritizing it. I haven't felt the need to go back and, like, rewatch the whole thing. I should. But because it didn't call back to me from the beginning of the year, I felt like that was a pretty good indicator of where it fell in my priorities.
And I understand that, and I think that that's sort of why I come back to sort of my take on a lot of these movies, was that, like, while I think that many of them are very good, and there are moments from them that I absolutely love across the board, it's strange to me how, like, even this year, like, Netflix came out with the movie Klaus.
Oh, and I wrote down honorable mention Klaus.
It was not even a Disney movie.
Not a Disney movie.
But
we
like,
didn't review it.
Yeah, but it would literally be at the top of my list.
It might be the best movie I saw all year, and it's a Christmas movie, but it's not surprising because it's kind of just The Emperor's New Groove.
I know. Yeah. The Postman's New Groove.
The Postman's New Groove.
Yeah, no, so... But the thing is about Klaus is that, like, we've been going to Christmas parties, and I've been going and, like, seeing all these people, and it's like, if there's a lull in the conversation, I'm like, have you seen Klaus yet?
Yeah.
Like, you should watch it. It's on Netflix. I'll give you my password if you need it. Like,
it's super good.
It's like, I'm, like, insisting people watch this movie, and that is how I think last year I would have felt about, like, Black Panther. Like, when Black Panther came out, it was like, have you seen Black Panther yet? Because you need to see it. It's so good. It's how I felt about Infinity War. Like, I was, like, all about it. Like, those were movies that I was, like, they, like, really resonated with me, and I really loved them. And I think that sort of to your tune of, like, with Captain Marvel, like, where you weren't, like, reaching, you know, for that movie off the shelf.
Yeah.
That's... I would agree with that sentiment. Like, like, maybe it's not one that, like, I've, like, fallen asleep to or turned on, like, you know, while I'm cleaning the house to have its, like, background noise or whatever. But I felt like Captain Marvel did a couple of things that I really, really, really liked. For one, I thought Brie Larson was spectacular.
Oh, absolutely.
And Brie, like, I remember during the previews for it, I was like, I am so worried about this person playing this character. She does not seem like she can do it. I mean, you probably remember, I was saying in the office all the time, I was like, I do not know how I feel about the casting. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And now I have, like, the biggest crush on Brie Larson ever.
Right.
Like, she's so awesome, and I thought she absolutely killed it. And the other person that I tend to not like in the Marvel universe is
Nick Fury.
Nick Fury. He's one of these characters that, like, he's this kind of odd, ominous dude who, like, everybody regards as being this, like, strategic mastermind and the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, like, he always knows everything and blah, blah, blah. And he's, like, 3 steps ahead of everyone. And it's like, yeah, but, like, we don't really know him at all. So, like, it's like...
He's never a main character.
Right. So,
it
always felt like this god card that people were playing. It's like, oh, but Nick Fury. And it's like, oh, I'll accept that he is very powerful, but, like... doesn't seem like he would beat a lot of these other people, like, when it really came down to it.
Right.
But, like, his superpower basically is, like, you know, a strategic insight
like
person.
Leadership and, all that stuff.
So, what I like about Captain Marvel is also that you get a lot more out of his character. Which I thought was really cool. And you do get, like, a better feel for what his relationship with the Avengers is like and how he sort of, like, started the whole initiative. But I also really loved the Skrull twist. And that, you know,
that
like,
was,
that all of a sudden it turns out that, like, these notorious, bad guys throughout the entirety of like, the comic runs and stuff are the Skrull. And so it's like all of a sudden when that wasn't the case and they were like, these refugees, it was like, what an interesting way to tell the story.
It really was. And I would recommend people go check out the NerdSync video about the Skrulls and how they shift where they are based on like the time they come out in and like what people are talking about and stuff, which was really interesting. But yeah, I liked that twist a lot because it was like you went in just thinking, oh yeah, these are the bad guys, whatever, and then whoop, oh, big switch.
Right.
And then you had the big Nick Fury switch as well, which sort of comes up again later in Far From Home. And yeah, it was. I did like it a lot, but I do want to go back to it, but it hasn't given me the call.
Okay, no problem.
But, okay, so then what else do we have? We have Far From Home and Endgame, basically, and then I have Frozen 2 significantly higher than you.
Right. Yeah, so you can defend that admirably, I'm sure. So let's talk Endgame for a second because that was the biggest movie of all time.
Yeah.
I actually think that the aggregate score, if you were to combine critic rating and audience rating into like a shared score, I actually think on Rotten Tomatoes for 2019, Avengers Endgame is in the top spot of all movies.
Oh wow.
I believe, and
between critics and.
Critics and audience, it is the most shared
beloved.
Opinion, across both of those,
Interesting.
which is pretty crazy. Endgame to me, I thought was spectacular. It does have some of my favorite moments from the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
I mean, you've got the Tony Stark moment at the end, the I am Iron Man, and the snap, which is just like, I love Robert Downey Jr., I love the snap, I love the moment, I love the twist. It was all perfect. Yeah. And then, of course, you have Cap
pulling the hammer,
which is like one of those moments that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Me too. The cheering in the audience, so fun.
It's like it's perfect and it's so cool. And it's like the question that I think has floated around the internet, and ever since Age of Ultron, people have been like, can he hold the hammer? Can he not hold the hammer? And it was sort of like, the way they did it was perfect. It was just like in Thor's reaction where he's like, I knew it. Like, it gave me chills just thinking about it. Like that friendship, the camaraderie, the support.
It was just, I think it showed a lot of restraint on Marvel's part. Where like at any point in any other movie they could have had this moment.
Sure.
And they just like waited. Like no. Hold that card.
We'll get there.
We're gonna play it, but you really gotta wait.
Right.
And it was like they did that with the Avengers Assemble line too, and it was just like, oh man, I can't tell you. There have been so many times just this year, or if I'm having like a bad day, or we're like pulling clips or something, I'll just like anytime we have to open Endgame, I'll just like open the scene where everyone's coming through the portals, and I'll just like watch it, and it just like improves my mood.
Right.
Like, I just love it.
On your left.
On your left, and then it's just like, oh man, I just love it so much.
Right.
It's so fun.
It's really spectacular. But time travel.
Oh, that was your big problem?
I can't get
time
over
travel?
it. I can't get it. It was like I sighed so hard in the theater when it was like, and this is one where maybe now that I'm more acquainted with it and more time passes and I rewatch everything, and even knowing, like, Infinity War has been like one of my favorite movies of all time, and maybe now that I know how it ends, going back and rewatching Infinity War, it would be interesting to see like, if the mystery isn't there, do I still love everything about it in the same way? Mm-hmm. But when that was the explanation, was time travel, I was like, no.
I don't know, because like on the same rate though, like the time travel technology is almost less impressive than the drone hologram technology in Far From Home.
That's fair.
That's almost like the Mysterio technology is almost more fictional than time travel.
That's fair.
In some ways.
That's fair. And I will say, so it's interesting with Far From Home too, because it is one of the things I love about the movie is the execution of Mysterio as a villain, because Mysterio sort of famously doesn't actually have like powers of any kind.
Right.
And so the way that I thought that they demonstrated how this changing of Peter's reality could be such a powerful thing to use against him.
Yeah.
It was like, I thought that was very well illustrated. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was amazing.
Oh yeah. He nails it.
But you're absolutely right that the animators of that scene, and this is not a complaint, it is just worth saying, is that they were not attempting to like throw little blips or glitches in it to give it a little bit more reality.
Right, it's a little too perfect.
It's a little too perfect. Like they could have had like overlapping frames a little bit or something to where like the practiced eye could sort of see the mistakes.
That would have been interesting if you picked up on it earlier or something.
Yeah. Especially because the whole thing looks kind of like an acid trip anyway.
The acid trip scene, I get not really, but you know the one I'm talking about.
Yes, yeah.
That one's insane. That was really cool. It gets him to get hit by the train.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, that hurt.
Pretty crazy. And so what I said about Far From Home, even while we're on that note there, is that I said that I think that this wins for me in a slightly bittersweet way. It was like the movie that I felt like I didn't have nearly as much to complain about, and so like overall,
so it's the top by default.
It's sort of, well, yes, because and I think that like Endgame, like if there are slightly different things, like obviously it's a super strong contender. I mean, and I love Endgame, and maybe when it came down to it, I'd be more inclined if I was just gonna watch a random movie on a Sunday afternoon. It might be the case that I would watch Endgame first over Far From Home.
Right.
But I really, really, really liked like the Iron Man moments with Peter, where he's like like putting on the glove and like making the suit and all that. And I'm very, very, very hopeful. I think Tom Holland is like one of my favorite actors in the MCU. Yeah. I'm super hoping that his arc can go as far as they will let it.
Oh, I know. Like, hey, remember earlier this year when Spider-Man wasn't in the MCU for like a month?
Yeah, that was sad. Yeah.
That resolved itself pretty quickly.
It did.
Yeah. To the shock of no one.
To the shock of no one.
Yeah.
But that's one where I think that we can literally watch Peter go from being a teenage kid who wants to fight crime to quite literally being eventually the leader of the Avengers.
I think that's what they were kind of setting up because like when it came out, people were saying like, no, this is actually the end of Phase 3, not Endgame, and I was like, oh, horse hockey! Right. It's freaking Endgame. It's the end is in the title. Like that's the end. But I'm like, the further I get from it, this is when I was like, no, I see, I get it. Especially if they're setting Peter up to be like essentially the next Tony Stark.
Right.
Like this is a really nice like epilogue, like way to like set you up for Spider-Man to be the next like big guy. My only concern is that like some sort of legal problems will arise again in the future, and that will prevent Peter from being it'll like make the messaging in this movie like fall a little flat because like, oh, you were clearly setting him up to be the guy, and then whoops, made a switch.
Someone needs to call me at some point in time and be like, Tom Holland just locked in the contract for like 19 more movies, so like we're good. We're good. He'll be here.
He'll just be here. Yeah.
Because I think he would do it too. I think he loves it. Like he loves being a part of the universe in the same way that Robert Downey Jr. loves being a part of the universe. Yeah. Like he might say he's not going to come back. If they give Robert Downey Jr. something to do, he's coming back.
Yeah,
100%.
He's going to come back. He's like, Dr. Doolittle's fun, but hit up Tony Stark real quick.
I like being Tony.
I like being Tony. Who doesn't?
Right.
All right. So let me defend some Frozen 2 then.
All right, lay it on me.
Well, one. It could be recency bias, but like I feel like the soundtrack is just like the best soundtrack from a movie this year.
Yes, absolutely. I would not disagree for a second. I think, hang on, can I give my Frozen 2 thought on the soundtrack? Because I have it right here. Okay, so I think that the music is spectacular, and it's interesting because I didn't like it as much on the first pass as I think you can like the songs from Frozen on the first pass because they aren't as catchy, but that is not a criticism. It's like the songs age much, much, much better. Like they are songs that like quite literally, I drive a big pickup truck, and like if you catch me in a stoplight and look over, I'm jamming to
Frozen 2.
The Frozen 2 soundtrack. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So no, it's I think that, and then kind of scooching in Speechless from Aladdin.
Aladdin.
That's my jams.
That's your jams.
There
you go.
The music there's no argument from me whatsoever. The music is fantastic.
The interesting thing too about the music is that not only are the in-movie songs good, but then like the different versions from like other artists that I like do during the credits and stuff.
Yes.
Like typically I mostly just don't like those versions as much.
Sure.
But so many people I've talked to have been like, what I think is crazy is that they're all just as good.
Right.
Like so many, like you can like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people, you might prefer one or the other, but I feel like everyone kind of enjoys listening to both versions.
Yes.
In a way that is not very common at all.
No.
So really good music.
And I think part of that, what made it so well is like, especially Into the Unknown, like Panic at the Disco's version of it is so good.
Yeah.
But that is, it is not that I don't like
Idina
Menzel's version of it either. Yeah. So, and you're right. I think the only one is that Jonathan Groff and Weezer, who both sing Lost in the Woods.
Yeah.
They sound similar.
They
to
do
me.
sound. It just doesn't sound like that different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will listen to both without complaint.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the reason maybe I put it just a lot higher was because I felt like Elsa's story in particular, and maybe this is just part of like the season of life I'm in, I felt like it just like really hit me hard.
Yeah.
Like, I just really liked the direction they took and about like all like the self-acceptance and like taking the pressure off yourself and stuff.
Sure.
And yeah, I felt like that was just, I don't know, maybe, I can't tell if maybe that's like something I felt like stronger, or if this is sort of like a secret thing everyone's always feeling, like they're not giving themselves enough credit, or
I think the owner of a company, and you know, the like having a small growing family, twins on the way, the
right,
amount of responsibility that you have in your personal life,
it's high right now.
It's high, and I think you probably can understand the character of Elsa in like such a huge way because of the weight that she feels like is on her shoulders and yours. Mm-hmm. So I do think that, you know, like it would be very easy to see a lot of yourself in her character as she's going through it.
Yeah.
What is Anna's song? The Next Right Thing. The Next Right Thing.
Yeah.
That was the song that actually like is slowly coming out of the woodwork for me, because I think that's
not Lost in the Woods anymore.
No, I still love Lost in the Woods.
No, I meant this song. Never mind.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that was someone else's. Yeah, perfect. That was a song though that I think the more that I listen to it, the more it's like this is like my bad day anthem.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's like okay, how do I get back on track? And it's like, you know, just like let's take it one right thing at a time.
There you go.
So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Well, I think, do you want to check out our old rankings?
Yes.
And how they compare?
Let's do it.
All right. Oh, wow. So, interesting. Okay, so according to the way I ranked the movies as we reviewed them in real time, my number one movie would be Captain Marvel, and then Toy Story 4, and then Avengers Endgame.
Oh, wow.
So I put Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel has fallen through the ranks for me.
So your
it has not aged well.
Your recency bias has been very much proven.
I guess so. Well, except that Endgame is the top. It's so close to the top on both of them.
Okay, so I have Captain Marvel at top 2. Apparently, I don't know.
Man.
Maybe we were just like in a
We
jolly
were
good
really
mood
into
that
it,
day.
yeah.
Or maybe it surprised us.
Maybe it did.
I
That's
think
it.
I think that
Low
there's something.
Expectations.
Maybe that's what it was. Because like I said, I was worried about Brie Larson and then loved it. I have Far From Home at 2, so that's not that far off. I have Toy Story at 3.
Oh, so yeah, Toy Story has fallen for both of us.
Yes, yeah, that one maybe didn't do so hot over time. Avengers Endgame, Frozen 2, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and then Aladdin, Lion King.
Yeah,
so,
I still have Aladdin, Lion King as the bottom. I'll read my whole list just so in case people are curious. I had number 1 throughout the year would have been Captain Marvel, then Toy Story 4, Avengers Endgame, Frozen 2, Spider-Man: Far From Home, The Rise of Skywalker, Aladdin, Lion King.
Man.
So there you go.
This is something though that I feel like part of what I can see here, and this is something that I've come to know about myself a little bit as we've started reviewing movies, is I think that I do think that my recency bias is getting better in that I'm aware of the phenomenon.
Right.
And so I do think that that's part of why I wanted to do this. Walking into my reviews, I do think I'm like, okay, did I enjoy it as much as I enjoyed getting to go to the movies with all my friends last night, and it was something I was highly anticipating, and like, you know, like let me really try to digest like what I personally took away from the experience.
I think so often when we do the reviews, the theater experience is a big factor.
Yes.
In terms of like how I like felt about the whole movie versus like how I see the movie sitting by itself on a shelf, like on a pedestal, you know, as its own individual work of art. Like, I feel like my theater experience review versus my movie review it's hard to separate right away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Although
but
I wouldn't have said Captain Marvel was like a particularly grand theater experience, but whatever.
that's so interesting. I don't know what would have spurred on us ranking it so particularly highly, other than maybe being pleasantly surprised, because I would say that it probably would have been lower on my anticipation
For sure.
Compared to the rest of these movies, where I would have been very anxious to see most of them. So that's pretty fascinating. I do think it's interesting that the ones that we consider to be the worst, we consider to be the worst. Then too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's pretty fascinating. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I think the other thing that I've sort of gone through this year is that like, it in no way, shape, or form bothers me if I have a differing opinion about a movie than somebody else.
Yes.
It's like, because I think I can more than understand why some movies just mean more to other people than they do to me. And like, to that end, like I've heard plenty of people who, like The Lion King, for example, they didn't grow up with the original in the same way that we did. And so for maybe this Lion King was their version.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's an odd phenomenon, like where I think like growing up there are plenty of movies that have been made.
It'll be
past.
interesting to see it evolve, like where like if like my kids don't, like if they experience the live action ones first and then they watch the other one and they're like, oh, that's kind of childish.
Right.
You know, or something.
Well, yeah, so like for me, like Star Trek, like I love the most recent run of Star Trek movies, but I bet like Trekkies are like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like compared to the originals, like no.
Right.
You know, and maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. But I like those because they're the ones that I saw. Like
right.
So yeah, I don't know. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Guys, I am dying to know what your thoughts on all of these are. Or was there anything where you were yelling at the screen because of how we ranked it or where we ranked it? Be sure to leave all of your thoughts in the towel section down below. And remember, people might like things for different reasons than you. So let's try to have
objectively correct reason for our answer.
Let's have some quality conversation. We're all here to celebrate our fandoms, right?
That's right. That's the point. Celebrate your fandom.
Exactly.
Yes.
Again, guys, don't forget to go and check out Popcorn Culture, our brand new podcast. We have 3 full episodes that are already live, including an episode 0. So technically 4 in case you hadn't already caught that one. Link is in the description down below.
Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like on it if you haven't already. And thank you for watching Super Carlin Brothers all year long. This is the last official SCB video of the year, but don't you worry, we will be back in 2020. And if you want to do some more viewing of our content, you can check out this playlist right here with all of our reviews throughout the year, and then this video right here with the top 7 unanswered questions from Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. But until next year, bye!